Hello, good morning. So this video is gonna be it may show some darker Latino, Afro Latino people, but it's also gonna show your lighter skin or lighter hue or lighter complexion Afro Latinos or Latinas. And so for those of you that have been on the internet because you're angry, and you're disgruntled, however you want to put it, or mad, because I'm just going to be real here. There's certain people that have um, issues with themselves, and a lot of it has to do with racism or with sometimes they have insecurities about themselves. And so here in the US, some people have had insecurities over their skin complexion, and they may be black people, but they may be a much lighter skin. They might have more recessive traits about or features about themselves. They could have lighter eyes, lighter color eyes. They could have a different texture of hair, and the hair could be maybe fine or less coarse because there's different admixtures in the black culture, are in the black Americas as well. So it doesn't just only happen in other countries, but even here in America, you have some people who are black people, and they may to sometimes even black people who are here that may be of darker complexion. They may be under the impression that they're seeing a white person, or they're seeing what they would quote unquote what their standard of a Mexican person would be, that they would maybe in their mind consider not to be of the black origin, when in fact these people have African ancestry. They have maybe a history of a black tia or a black tio, and what that is a black auntie. They could have a black uncle, they could have a black grandparent, or maybe their parents are black people or Afro people, African people, or they have family members in their family. It extends. You can have extended family members, um, who sometimes marry in the family, and I understand that, but you can also have family members that may be grandparents, they may be relatives, and they are in the bloodline of the family. And so the features may show up, more in other Latinas, Latino people. You may see the darker skin. You may see a different type of hair texture that you might standard wise in America could identify with as being black. But there are black people who you might assume don't fit those phenotypical stereotypes. So those are stereotypes, y'all. Not all black people have the darker skin. Not all black people have the brown or the darker eye color, which is the dominant, the dominant gene, of course, or the dominant traits. And so some people might have a lighter skin, lighter eyes, and believe it or not, it gets even more complicated when you start talking about Creole people, when you start talking about people from Brazil. And so I wanted to move to this and start kind of going through some people. You can see some people here, and there's one entertainer here that a lot of people that I've been hearing have a problem with because she has said some negative things. I have to admit, now I have to be honest, she has said negative things, and a lot of that comes from the racism that comes from that particular person's background, because in the countries of Latin America, they also harbor a lot of racism. And sometimes you can have people that are right here in America. They can be a darker skin tone. They look or appear to be just like other black people, and they may claim, I'm not black. They may have grown up or lived in a different state or country, and had a different set of values and learned a different set of values and learned a different culture than what some people are accustomed to or on a general standard as people that are here in America that, you know, will claim black. Um, so I'm just gonna kind of go through the the picture, and I had to be careful because sometimes I'll be on different screens, and I won't have the screen up. I'll have the screen up, but I won't have it all the way up where you can actually see what's going on. So I'm trying to be careful of that. Some people you'll see that might be famous. Some people might not be famous. They may be models or entertainers. Some people you're going to know, you may not even like, and others you may like. So there's different beauty standards too in different places. You know, sometimes there's some countries where you being a heavier woman is looked at as beautiful, and it's a sign of wealth that if you're a much heavier woman, but we know in the Americas here, in the States, is what I call it, and what people from other places will call it, the Americas. Um, there are people that try to lose a lot of weight and be a lot thinner because that is more of a Eurocentric standard of beauty, having the recessive genes, the blue eyes, the blonde hair, and being a lot thinner. And so some of us know that. But however, there are some places, people who find beauty that is more exotic or more sensual or more, mysterious beauty, where you might have a different kind of color of eyes. They may not necessarily be light, they could be brown, they could be hazel. You could have the darker skin tones, maybe a coarser texture of hair, but you're a very pretty person on the inside as well as out. And some people find that attractive. You can have people who are lighter skin. They may have sometimes uh, the dominant traits, maybe the darker eyes and maybe coarser hair or hair that you can identify with the person that, yeah, that this person may be a black person, but they have a lighter shade of skin. But you know there are some people that you can't tell. You might not be able to phenotypically tell if they are African American or African descent type people. However, there are a lot of people that will have different types of hair textures, different eye colors. And I'm just going through, sometimes the standard of beauty is also coined and honed in on people that are black. At one time, people were proud to wear their natural hair. They were proud to be uh, a black person or a person that had darker skin. You have sometimes black people who are not secure with being darker skin or with having a coarser texture of hair or wearing their natural hair. So a lot of times they have a lot of pressure. At one time, they had a lot of pressure to wear certain hairstyles. We're having that discussion now where there's a law, I believe, that was passed that you cannot discriminate people from wearing their natural hair, and it has to do with not only your identity of who you are and being proud of who you are and accepting who you are, but also, there was a time that you couldn't wear braids. There even today you had some people that didn't want to hire people because they had dreads, and they tried to use other people to say, oh, you can't have, certain hairstyles because, it's not professional. And so what they didn't realize is that it was very discriminatory towards people that are black or people that are African descent, to discriminate them based on their natural hair styles and hair texture. Um, for some that have maybe the dreads or they have the braids or they have maybe an afro or they don't wear their hair always straight, or they may not be wearing a wig or a weave or whatnot. And so here's a woman called Amara La Negra. Um, and so she's, I believe she's an entertainer or singer. She's darker skinned, but she is Afro Latina. And so she identifies as being African descent and a Latina at the same time. So there's this crazy notion going around and hatred of people on the internet and on social media that Afro Latinos don't exist. They come in all colors, shapes, and sizes here, and the men as well. So it's not Afro Latina only, there's Afro Latinos. So there's men that have the same types of traits. They might have the darker skin and they might have the brown eyes, and appear to be what you would see in America. Or he's a black guy, but he could be from Cuba, he could be from Brazil, he could be from Nicaragua, he could be from Guatemala, but he's still Afro Latino. He's still African descent. And so it's the same for the women. And, some guys can also, it's the same thing. They can be lighter skin. They can have a different hair texture, but they're still part of black people. And so you're going to see a myriad of different hair textures, skin tones that you might have seen people, and a lot of times people won't tell you that they have a black grandmother or they have a great grandmother that was black, or maybe they don't even know that great grandma, great abuelita has parents that are African, and it may go back further in some people's family tree, and whatever traits they take on, maybe that of maybe the father or maybe the mother in the family. We may have a lot of people who might have Eurocentric features, because they have a lot more Euro um, people in their family that are closer to, the father. You know, Maybe he has a mother that is white, but the father is Afro Latino. And so the child then takes on maybe whatever the dominant, or the more stronger features are in that family background. So, but that doesn't discount for who they are. Okay, so been a lot of trouble, even in the Latin countries, and even with entertainers who are from Latin America. So here's one in particular that a lot of people are not that favorable of, and one that is very popular that people do have a liking to. There's a darker Latina and a lighter Latina, but they both have African blood in their family tree. And some people, just like here in America, where you have light skin versus black skin, we've had issues even in the States, not just in Latin America, the same issues over colorism, over skin complexion, over hair textures, over how somebody looks phenotypically. We know that Cardi B does have Afrocentric features. She does have African blood in her. Her father and her mother, just because they look one way or they have a lighter skin, does not mean they don't have African blood in their family tree. It is there. It is there. So Cardi B, you have Hennessy as her sister. So they've had a lot of problems with dealing with the public and different bloggers and different people who have criticized and very critical. And a lot of that is because of some of the things that have recently developed. And so I won't go into that because some people already are full aware. Now, even to this right here says Cardi B's sister Hennessy claps back at Amara La Negra over light skin comments. Okay, so that tells you right there that even in Latin America, you have darker Latinas and lighter Afro Latinas, both Afro Latinas. Cardi B is black, She has black in her family, and even though her father and mother may not appear to look a particular way to certain folks, you can see it's there. It is there. She can call herself, oh, I'm just a Latina. You know, she's probably more identifying with her culture. Latino is not a race, it is an ethnicity. That's what it is. You can be born in another place and have. We've seen black people in America that look Cardi B's color. There's a million people walking around that look like that, and they will straight up say, I'm a black person. And they can be lighter than Cardi. I've seen people lighter than Cardi B, different hair texture than her, and they say, yes, I'm black. You know, it depends on how people feel about themselves and what they best describe themselves to. And some people do have, even here in America, issues with colorism and identity of who they are. And it happens a lot. It's very prevalent in Latin America as well as the Americas. Um, so you have light skin people with freckles. That doesn't mean that they don't have African blood. And oh, she's got freckles. There's no black people with freckles. You'll probably have people saying that because it's out of ignorance. So there are black people with freckles. I've seen darker people than this woman that I just switched off from who have freckles. I know somebody I used to work with, this one lady. I thought it was a trip. It was wild. She was a black woman, and she wasn't that light, but she wasn't that dark. But she had a gang of freckles. She had a gang of freckles. She had a lot of freckles. So there are other people too. This woman is Afro Dominicana. Now, if you look at her, you some people may say, "Oh, she's not black." She's not black. She's still a black person. She identifies with Afro Dominicana. Some people identify with who they really are, and others will identify with what they put on the census, what the government told them that they are. And America, we a lot of times will accept what the government tells us what we are a lot of times. So you even have people here in America that want to go around talking about, I'm African, I'm African. Well, we weren't born in Africa. Some of us weren't raised in Africa. We have the African features, but you'll hear people debate on whether or not black people that are from here are really African folks. So we also have a different set of cultures that we come from here in America. Some of us might not identify as being African. We may just say American, because we come from the American culture. We may say black. I'm a black person or I'm a person of color. Everybody has different things that they want to ascribe themselves to based on where they were raised, where they were born, what culture they grew up in, what they learned. And then some people have insecurities within themselves because they're not accepted sometimes in their own cultures because they look there's a such thing as people who, even in the black culture, uh, they'll look at you and phenotypically you look more Euro or you have more Eurocentric features. So they sometimes will distance themselves or they'll criticize you because you don't have this stereotypical features of a person that would be black. Although you may claim black on your voter's registration, you may claim black on your application, you may know and identify with black culture, but because you have a lighter skin or you have a different eye color or different way you look, other people make you feel as though you're not black, but you know who you are on the inside. And these people know who they are. Some people embrace the fact that they don't look a certain way and they can pass for someone with more Eurocentric or look to be or appear to be white or appear to be Mexican, Euro Mexican, somebody that looks more Spanish, looks more white, Aryan, that is. And so, 11 examples of light skin privilege in Latinx communities. That's everyday feminism. So, you see this woman here. She may, you have some people who look like her. You clearly see she has African blood in her or the Afro descent, but she may say she's something else. I've seen a lot of Latin people do that because there's so much racism in those countries. And they'll say, oh, I'm a Dominicana, whatever, because they're more identifying with their culture. And it's more of an easier way out than having to say, oh, I'm a black person. Well, maybe because that they look at it as I didn't grow up here in America in the States. I grew up in the Dominican Republic, or I grew up in the DR. I grew up in, you know, um, Brazil. I grew up in Panama. So they'll identify more with the culture rather than, um, the just the race in it of itself of who they are, because they could be. Let's get into this mezcla. They could be like a mestizo type, a mixed person, and they could have different racial backgrounds in your family, which I believe a lot of people, especially in America, because of all of the things that have happened throughout history, there are a lot of black people that stereotypically you see them as black. They might have one parent that is white. They might have a grandpa or grandmother that is white. They may have, you know, certain family members that are they have lighter or recessive traits, that are maybe the stronger features in the family makeup. And so light skinned people, casting for a reality show, light skin versus dark skin debate. And so there's different people who, what some people would say, they're sometimes you hear people saying they're culture vultures, or they're ambiguous, meaning they might have more of the traits of a person to look as though that they can pass for something else. But you definitely, some people, it shows up more than others. You can tell that this man, he's Latino, he's Afro Latino, but you can see that he has phenotypically, you can it may show up more that he has the characteristics of someone that has African roots. However, this woman right here doesn't really look so much like that, does it? But that doesn't mean she doesn't have a black grandmother or great grandmother or grandpa that could be black. You know, just so how happens that she takes on some of the more recessive traits. But how so? Do we really think so? How do we not know that she didn't straighten her hair? How do we not know that, if her hair was a lot more on what it really looks like? Because, you have some people that have more hair texture like this, but they use the flat iron and the blow dryer and then appear to look like this. They can pull it off and pass for someone that looks maybe white almost. Um, but notice she has the darker eyes. So there are different features. Look at this woman right here. If you were to look at her as a lighter skinned black woman and then a darker skinned black woman, that still doesn't mean that she is not a black person, right? Just some people are lighter and some people are darker. You can see it here. Are light skinned African Americans treated differently, viewed more attractive than dark? We have that problem here in America. So people fight about what they look like. Look at this. This woman it says, what does it really mean to be Afro Latina? Somebody sees her on the street, but she ain't black, she ain't black, she ain't black. But this woman identifies with her African roots. Apparently, you all don't know all of her family tree. You don't know her personally to know what this woman has gone through. Okay, so she's probably been ostracized. She doesn't look, you know, Like, she doesn't look like your typical black person, right? Here, what the regular standard would be, I guess, darker skin, a coarser hair texture, maybe darker eyes. Well, so have you. I mean, her eyes don't look that light, and she could have did the same thing. She could have took a flat iron and a blow dryer to her hair as well. So, or maybe not. But that doesn't discount to say that she doesn't have people in her family that are African people. And just when it got down to her, she takes on some of the more recessive traits, maybe hair texture wise, skin. That doesn't mean that she doesn't have African in her family. She could have African people, black people in her family. You wouldn't know. And some people are walking around and they'll pretend like they don't have any African in their family, and they know they do. They know they do. They don't want to tell you that because they have a problem with it, or they had problems with being accepted in their country. And it's the same in America, how black people will do other people. And so you'll have also Mexican people who will call themselves, oh, I'm a light skinned Mexican or I'm a dark skinned Mexican. It happens in their cultures the same way it happens with black people. Mexican skin tones images on Pinterest, dark brown eyes. For the eyes, you see her dark brown eyes, but you'll have different hues of different people, the dark skinned women versus the light skinned women, colorism within our community. You'll have some of the darker shades to almost the middle shades to the lighter shades, different hair textures. But that doesn't mean these people all don't share similar roots. And so a lot of us need to get this out of our head. We have black people who sometimes don't want to be who they are. They don't want to have dark skin. They don't want to have, the dominant traits. They want to lighten their skin. Then you have light skinned people who wish that they could be darker, believe it or not. They feel that they're too light, and they have been told they're not black enough. We've heard that. Some people said that, asking the question whether Obama was black enough, because Obama has a white mother and a Kenyan father. And so look how he turned out. But we know, because it shows up really well, that he's a black guy. We know this. So the best hair color for black women. So we have black women who will straighten their hair, and her hair is just bone straight, just like the woman we saw earlier. But we can see a lot more of the Afro features in her rather than the other woman. But that doesn't mean they both don't have African, blood in them. We can see maybe something more in another person than we can in another person. But that doesn't mean that just because they're more lighter or they have more recessive traits that they don't have any African roots. All of these women have are in a picture, and it has to do with the what they call colorism first, racism later. Okay, so you see all these women, and the middle one right away, somebody's like, "Oh, she's not black." Yes, she is. She is. We don't come in one color, in one shade, and one hair texture. We come of many colors, many eye colors, many hues, many shades, and we can have mestizo in the black culture as well. We have a lot of mestizo as well. We have a lot of mixing in African peoples because of the history of it. And so where some of us can appear this way, some of us, some people know automatically, oh yeah, she's a black lady, she's just very light skinned. Somebody's gonna say, oh, she's not black, she's a Latina. They get it confused. That's a culture. That is not a race. They're probably identifying saying, oh, she looks more like she's from Latin America and that she's not black. But however, People don't understand that in Latin America, there is a lot of African blood in that bloodline there. And there's a history with Latin America. And so these are just different people on from lighter skin. Let's go back to this woman right here. Still got African, I see it, maybe others can. And then you see this young, cute little girl right here, with the braids. She's, people, oh, she's dark, she's black, she's a black girl. Well, you know what? Guess what? She's a black girl too. And even the one that I was looking at earlier that some people thought, might think, that this woman, oh no, this woman right here, she ain't black. You know, she is. There are a lot of women that look like Cardi that are they're black, but they may be from another country. And so look at all of the different skin tones, the different people, how they look, you know. That doesn't mean that they don't have, African blood in them. You can be from the darkest to darkest person to the lightest of lightest shade of person, and you can be mixed with a lot of different other races, and still, it's what it's Asians, blacks, Latinas, and Indians, and so everybody can have a mix of this. Some more than others of some certain racial identity. So what you phenotypically look like, you have the light skin, the dark skins. So we have that problem here in America, and that's the reason why there's so much fighting. That's the reason why people have a problem here. We have a huge problem with colorism here in America. What is an Afro Latina? Look at this woman here. Afro Latinos are Hispanic to the Charger Bulletin. Okay, so Afro Latinos are in the Hispanic culture. So let's just click on the page because it's so sad because people are not even accepting of themselves because they don't know how to get out of this. Afro Latinos are Hispanic too. Okay, so this is by Mitsuki Garvey Sanchez, and so this was fairly recent, y'all. Some This was in 2018, okay? And so this is a beautiful article and it kind of breaks down some issues. Afro Latina refers to a person who is Latin American and identifies with a significant African ancestry. People tend to be confused about individuals who consider themselves Afro Latina and do not pick a side. Okay, so the identity of Afro Latina and Afro Latino and Afro Boricua or Afro Dominican, etc., is to show society that these individuals are proud of their heritage and do not have to pick one race or identity as such. Okay, as so it is a constant battle to identify as both Hispanic and Black. You may be too Black for the Hispanic kids or too Hispanic for the Black kids. It is hard growing up being proud of who you are in a judgmental world that is ready to label you. And so the government also labels folks. So we pick sides. We pick who we want to be based on how we feel or how we're being judged. So a lot of times people are insecure. Even the lighter skinned people can be insecure. They might have been ostracized by darker skinned Black people. So they just go ahead and pick the side that people would say, oh, okay, since they want to say I'm not Black, then I'll just say I'm a Latina and I'm this and I'm that. And they'll just deal with the culture per se rather than the race because it's so complicated and complex. So, like it says that you may be for for this culture of Hispanic kids, you may be too Black. For the culture of Black kids, you may be too Hispanic. So it's hard growing up being proud of who you are in the judgmental world that is ready to label you. But that is exactly how it happened. So the first time I realized that I was too black for Hispanic kids was in high school. This is someone telling you a story about what their experience was. So I was told that I am too brown to be Hispanic, but my curly hair and lack of fluency in the language, she had that. And so my first thought was, wow, I never had someone tell me that my looks determine what I am. So as I got older, I realized I knew what I identified as. So I also knew my father was 100% Hispanic, and I learned to be proud of who I am. So as an Afro Latina, you're always on the defense mode. And so, have we seen that from some popular, well known entertainers that they always have to clarify who they are, whether they're darker or lighter skinned from the Latin Americas? So, when people look at me, they will guess I'm either black or Hispanic mixed with white, said Kiana Quinones, a University of New Haven student. So when others don't believe you're Hispanic, they think that they have the right to quiz you on it. And since I don't grow up in a Hispanic household and speak Spanish isn't native to me, they think that they can discredit me as a person. So Afro Latino is not identifying as either or. According to Pew Research, 67% say that their Hispanic background is part of their racial background. So public individuals such as actress Rosario Dawson, Rosie Perez, Zoe Saldana are all proud Afro-Latinas. For those who are saying that that doesn't exist, these people have been around, I guess, since, forever. Some of them, Rosie Perez, since the 80s. She was in Do the Right Thing with Spike Lee. She's Afro-Latina, okay? Rosio Dawson, she played, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she was in Men in Black with Will Smith. She's a Afro Latina. And Zoe Saldana, she's an actress, I believe, and I've seen her in several movies. All proud Afro Latinas, and they aren't afraid of their truth. So the truth is, Hispanics come in all shades, shapes, and sizes. Like I've been saying, y'all. So there is no such thing as you do not look Hispanic or the infamous you do not speak Spanish and you are not Hispanic. Okay, so people who fall under the spectrum of Afro Latina shouldn't be worried about someone discrediting who they are. So that's basically okay. So this right here is Misuki Garvey Sanchez. She's a senior studying public relations and journalism, along with being the on the air anchor of Charger Bulletin News show. Okay, so and so let me see here. Going back up. Okay. And so, and you heard what her last name was. So that should give you a clue right there. So, you can be a person looking at her. Some people say, oh, I see a black girl. And then some people will say, wait a minute, her hair looks different or her face looks different. Oh, her last name is Sanchez. She ain't black, you know, but she identifies with her African roots as well as her Latina roots. So she calls herself Afro Latina, and it does exist. For those of the people who persist on being rude and mean and on this hate and smear campaign of how people are supposed to look if they're not black enough or not Hispanic enough. You can be both. You can have white in you and still call yourself Afro Latina and Hispanic. You can have what they say mestizo. Yeah, you can be a darker person and have white people in your family as well. And have black people in your family and have all kinds of people in your family. And whatever you feel that you are best described to, you're going to call yourself that. And then since we're in such a judgmental world and people can't get off their soapbox of hatred, and discrediting people and labeling people such as the government does, because like black people, we've had a history where they've called us all kinds of different names throughout the course of our lives since we've been in America, and we know the derogatory names, but we tended to hone on to that and try to hold that as more a terms of endearment. And a lot of people can't get away from that. The N word, of course, is what I'm saying. And we went to Negro, then we went to colored, then we went to what is it? I think there were other names. You know, some people they mentioned some other names. People who are old school heads. You know, those colored people. That's what they are, colored people, because they even had it in Jim Crow. Colored restroom, white restroom. You had certain places you can eat, certain places you can go based on who you were, what your race identified as. So we've had problems here in America, just like in any other country where they've had problems with skin complexion and how people look. And so you have different people from different backgrounds, different walks of life. Let's say if they all, if you have people that mix together. This is a black guy. He's very popular in America in terms of acting. Look at his eye color. But we know he's got African blood in him, and nobody's running around like he ain't black. He's looked at as a heartthrob, a heartthrob, like a really attractive black man with, he has those light colored eyes. As a matter of fact, he's going to be in a movie. It's called The Intruder, and he's going to play the husband of this woman that's going to be in the movie, who she's also popular, and it's a movie that's coming out, I think, relatively soon. But he's featured in this popular movie called The Intruder, and is coming probably real soon to the box office. But here we got ancient black china. Oh yes, it exists. Ancient black china among Mongols, Zhou, Ainu, Among, and Huns. These are African people that are in ancient China, Black China. It exists. There are Black Chinese people as well, and so most of the lighter people probably, are the more Euro, the more Euro looking people are closer. They have the more recessive traits, but even with that, they still, to me, don't look, you know, with the naked eye, you can't tell if they have um, somebody in their family that is black, which they probably do. They can have someone in their family that looks like this, and they can be Chinese. There's problems in their country. Every country has a scale of who's who. So light skinned girls on Pinterest, they have a whole thing on social media about whiter skin, darker skinned women, how they look, the different skin tones. Even kids identify with who they think is the standard of beauty. They even had a test where the kids, they always pick the lighter dolls and more recessive traits because they had a problem with color, because this country is so judgmental about how people are supposed to look. Okay, so this is supposed to be an African American ancient 18-inch doll with medium brown skin tone, okay, but it's supposed to depict people of Afro descent or African descent of many hues, not just your standard stereotype look. And so there's different people all around, and you don't know. Some you just assume, oh yeah, she's white, she's white, she's white. We don't know who all of the other people are in these women's families. We're seeing what they look like right here, but we don't know who their great grandfather was. We don't know who their great great tia and tia was, and they could look like, you know, this actor here, you know. So a lot of people ask the question, are African Americans mixed? Yes, they are. They are. They have other people from their background. As a matter of fact, I believe he's been in Kendrick Lamar's popular videos, and he's been in a lot of movies. And the actor here, I don't know, this might be more. Um, yeah, okay, so there were questions. People talk about, African Americans and all of the different things that majority of ancestors were taken as slaves anywhere to Senegal to Angola, and very tiny percent of East Africa as well. So there are likely some color variations in African Americans coming off the boat, but I think you are looking at facial features as well as the skin color. So you're trying to figure out why are some African Americans looking like Vanessa Williams and why they look like this actor right here, Don Cheadle. And so those are good questions because we all don't, typically look like each other, but we still have the African roots and African. We'll still claim African. Look at her. Somebody may look at her if they don't know any better because she has the bluish looking eyes or lighter colored eyes and a different hair texture and different skin. Oh, she ain't black. She's black. Okay. She's still black. White people sometimes don't even know. There's in history a time where there was a train where African slaves were trying to move to freedom by going northward on trains. And in order for you to get on the train, you had to look European and have more Eurocentric features. Well, Vanessa Williams could have passed. She definitely has those features. She could have got on the train and they would have let her ride without any problems. She would have been an escape to the north because she looks more like she could be from some other culture that is not African. Phenotypically, the standard of what white people in racist America would have coined her as, they would have said, "Oh, she looks like one of us." And there are a lot of black people that look like Vanessa Williams that look even lighter than, yeah, I'm going to go even more into. There are black people that look even lighter than Vanessa Williams, believe it or not. And they're still black people. They have African blood in them. You know, they can pass. There's documented history that there were African slaves or people who were in an enslaved culture. They might have been the servants. They might have been what you call the house Negroes is what they coined them as because they were mixed with the rapists more had the more recessive genes. They look like the slave master. And then there's the field Negroes who they didn't have those recessive genes. They look like your typical black folks that, they have the coarser texture hair, the darker skin. So they were treated harsher, supposedly, or were they? Think about it. You're in the house with the slave master. He's raping the women. Even if they're lighter skinned, they're getting treated bad as well. Maybe they're not grueling in the grueling hot sun. So that's probably what they would have described that to be. And so these are different black people with lighter skin, darker skin. Amara Negra confronts young Hollywood after offensive comments. And so she's had struggles because of her skin color, because of who she identifies with as being Afro Latina rather. And features can be like this or look like this as well. So some people are really ignorant, light skin tone, the most extravagant hair color ideas for African American women. We worry about our hair, we worry about our appearance, our looks, our nails. So that is why you have people now. They're considered, believe it or not, Faison comedian and this woman right here. They're considered Afro Latino and Latina because Faison he was born in Cuba. He's a Cuban black guy, but we've seen him as Big Worm on Friday, where people best know him as Big Worm, and then we've seen her on The Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and she was the little sister. But these people are Latinos, or Afro Latina y Latino, so they identify as that as well. But they may just because they're here in the states, they may say, "Oh, I'm black," because it's less complicated. So the damaging hierarchies we place on skin shades. And so this woman, I think she's Saldana, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to see. I believe that's who she is. I just mentioned her name. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. So the damaging hierarchies we place on skin shades. Okay, so this is out of the Independent. So we have a lot of literature that covers some of the things we do as Black people here in America to one another to hurt each other. So yeah, this is Zoe Zaldana. Okay, so we see her, we know, okay, she's Black, but some people might say, oh, her hair is too thin, it's not coarse enough. She's not black enough. There is a growing frustration with the tendency for light skin to be privileged over dark skin shades in Hollywood and the media. This is by Ashia Phoenix. Okay. So this is Zoe Zaldana. Okay. So I'm sure she's been met with some issues. So the Hollywood actress Zoe Zaldana has responded to criticism that she is too light skinned to play African American singer songwriter Nina Simone, commenting, I can't stop to think about who thinks um, that need to be black enough or not black enough. The actress whose mother is of Puerto Rican descent and whose father is from the DR, Dominican Republic, which one other person that people are really angry with, they want to go around showing her parents, and because her parents look light skinned and take on the more recessive traits, they claim she ain't black enough, but she's black, y'all. Okay, all these people are black. They are black folks. They're mixed black people, but they're still black. Okay, it doesn't take away from them having African roots. Okay, so let's say her mother's Puerto Rican and her father's from the DR, Dominican Republic. So she discussed that the controversy surrounding her casting in the film Nina, which is the great singer Nina Simone. Now we know Nina Simone had coarse hair. She was a dark skinned black woman. She was beautifully um, um, she had a beautiful voice. She sang and she did a lot of music. And as a matter of fact, she was awarded a lot of. I think she might have been awarded medals and whatnot. But she was awarded, I know, for her arts and the music that she did. So she goes back from even the civil rights movement. She did music. So it was discussed the controversy surrounding the casting of Nina Simone in this month's Ocean Drive magazine. So the casting choice was elicited considerable anger, or had elicited considerable anger, because while Zoe Saldana's skin shade should not matter, prejudice on the basis of skin shade known as colorism and shadeism means that it does matter for some people. So there is a growing frustration with the tendency for light skin to be privileged over darker skin shades in Hollywood and media. So with the implication that light skin is more attractive and more palatable than dark skin shades. So given the obstacle Nina Simone faced because of the shade of her skin and what she then represented for other black women who face similar oppression, the casting selection is emotive. Nina Simone's daughter, Nina Kelly, Simone Kelly, told the International New York Times that in terms of appearance, it was not the best choice because her mother was told that her nose was too wide and her skin was too dark. So colorism continues to affect people of color and in particular women all over the world. So it is a big problem here in America. We we label one another in black culture and then the media labels us. So that's why we have so many problems with it and with people who come from different cultures or different backgrounds, speak different languages, or they tend to look more recessive, but they have African in their bloodline. A lot of people, black people, will get upset and say, "You are not black enough," you know. So it happens. It does happen. So helping to perpetuate hierarchies based on skin shade. So it the consequences can be seen even in the UK, y'all. We've seen it with what's the lady who got married to Prince Harry? Look at her. They said she wasn't black enough. They said she wasn't black. She can clearly see she has a white father, she has a black mother, and people were saying she ain't black enough. She don't look black to me. So UK, where the skin lightening creams are routinely sold in many black and Asian hair and beauty shops. Meghan Merkel is what I was thinking of. So, coupled with the racism from which it stems, colorism has contributed to the growth of skin lightening into the industry expected to be worth 19.8 billion globally 2018, according to the companies in the market. So, when I first spoke out against colorism, I used to feel mine was a minority voice, but now it is a hot topic of discussion among people of color following the UK premiere Dark Girls, a documentary on the subject and the rise of the Dark is Beautiful campaign in India. Dark Girls, produced by Guy Shanison, okay, Barry and Bill Duke, discusses the damaging effects of colorism on African Americans and people of color more generally. So the reasons for the prevalence of the continuation of colorism are complex. So it has its roots in slavery and colonialism. That's where it begins. So during slavery, slave masters would rape slaves who had children that had lighter skin, and with the light, and they had children that had ended up with lighter skin because of the rape of slaves. So the lighter skins who were accorded to a higher afforded a higher status because of being lighter skinned. You were called the house Negro, and the darker skinned people that worked on the field, they were darker skinned, coarser hair, more dominant traits rather than recessive. They were the field Negroes. So I'm just adding that in there so you can get a picture of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of scrutiny based on colorism, and it goes all the way back to colonialism, and it's still happening and it's prevalent today. So the historical legacy has been exacerbated by institutional racism. The ways in which institutional processes discriminate against the disadvantaged people of color, and the privilege of white and light skin over dark skin in the global beauty market. So even in India, even in some of the like Jamaica, they call it bleaching your skin. There are dark women who will feel the need that they have to bleach their skin to be lighter and they'll be accepted more if they're a model or an actress just to make it in whatever they want to make it in on social media. So colorism does not just affect people with dark skin. However, people with light skin can be accused of not being dark enough or acting superior, or to the darker skin shades, people they feel as though that they're acting superior over them because they have a privilege that affords them to assume Eurocentric features is what it means. So it affects the divisive pitting people of different shades against one another. So it distracts from much needed efforts to tackle the very real, enduring problem of racism, which is never far from the headlines. Colorism is insidious and damaging. So it needs to be addressed, and now is the time to do it. And so that's basically an article. And so Zoe Zaldania talks a lot about how she was discriminated because of how she looks. And so they said, "Oh, you couldn't place, these actors and actresses. They are sometimes blackballed and told that they can't play certain characters because they're either not black enough, or they don't look Hispanic enough, or they don't look Mexican enough, or they don't look dark enough, or they don't look light enough for certain characters. So they get treated bad on all levels as well based on that. So let me try to click black on those pictures. If you didn't see, I was on this article with Zoe Zeldania, so I'll share it now. Hopefully it'll I can share it. I have to randomly click back on it because sometimes I don't hit the screens correctly, or sometimes the screens don't show up. So I'm trying to see if I can present it. It sometimes it clicks it off, but it is a screen having to do with an article. Some people know who Zoe Saldana is, the actress. Somehow this screen is not popping up, so I'm trying to get the screen to pop up, but it won't. But Zoe Saldana, she's been in a lot of movies. Some people, if you look her name up, I don't know if this is gonna show. Trying to show the screen, but for some reason it's not showing. So sorry for that. And so I'm not gonna go off of it. Let me see if I can try to get out of. Maybe I'm on too many screens again. Sometimes I've been known to do that. I'll have like more than one screen up of something. Okay, so maybe that has something to do with it because I was on this all the images of people who have a gang of screens up. Get rid of those screens. Get rid of those screens. Let's see if I can get rid of a couple of these screens. Um, see if I can get them out of the way. So maybe that will work. I don't know. I have a couple of screens open, so it doesn't show. Sometimes the screens pop in, they pop out, and so yeah. But I know you heard what I was reading. And so, yeah, it can happen in a lot of different countries. A lot of different cultures experience different levels of colorism. People experience a lot of problems from how they look, from what languages they speak. There could be, no, it's not even showing any of the screens. So I just was trying to test it out because I was looking. So I'm going to get off of this one. Trying to see, maybe I put up too many screens, but if you can't see it, Zoe Saldana, okay, she was one that she's been in a lot of movies. She I think she's very popular as a matter of fact, so some people probably already know just by name basis who I'm referring to. And so anyway, I felt the need to do this video because I feel like sometimes people don't understand that America is very, very complex when it comes to, you know, I'm trying to do screen share. When it comes to people from different backgrounds, different walks of life. No, for some reason, it doesn't want to act right. So, okay, so sorry for that. If you can't see the screen, and that happened to me from the the very first video when I was talking about this. Certain things didn't show up until I put them in other videos later. Then it showed up. But this is a huge problem in America. So based on the article, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to put it under my video, the name or the title of this one article. I had read another article too. I don't know if that one showed up or not. I'm trying to see if I can copy and so I'll put it underneath, and it serves as a link, so to speak. And so Zozo Vanya breaks down what she goes through in Hollywood. In Hollywood, there's actors and actresses that people, they sometimes have a problem with them playing certain characters because they don't look like the original character that they're playing. And so it's out of the independent. Let me see if I can get out of that screen. Okay, so anyway, okay. I was clicking on and off of stuff. So I was trying to test it out to see. In the beginning, it was showing things. It was showing pictures, but I don't know what happened after that. And so my point is some people will get upset now since we're not on screens or anything. It's not showing. Some people will get angry and they'll say, "Well, I'm Mexican or I am not black. I'm not like you." You know, there's some people that harbor racism and they don't want to say, even though they could have a black mama, a black Tio, a black abuelito. They could have black people all running through their family tree, but they'll swear up and down that they don't have any African blood in them. And that is a problem that they have within themselves. And so you have to understand this, people. There are people, even in America, that don't want to be black, even though they're a black person or they have black, they have black people in their family. They'll claim everything else in America. That's where a lot of this is coming from. It happens here in America. We've seen it. We've seen people sometimes they look black as somebody's shoe. And they'll say, "I'm not like you people. I'm not from here. I'm not like you people." And so now I want to say this. Sometimes people can be, they can be a black person or an African person, and they might have grown up around all white people. And the culture that they grow up with was white culture. And so we've seen that where sometimes they can be just as damaging or not worse than, racist white people. And they'll get on social media and they'll tell you all these things, that are, really negative about people that are black. And a lot of that is because they're far removed from black the culture of black people from maybe marginalized situations. So, you can have some black people that maybe they weren't raised in a situation where they were poor. You know, there's also the issue of classism as well. Classism goes into whether you have money, whether you grew up with money or without money, or you grew up in a culture where people they didn't have to get on welfare and or they didn't have to worry about not having any resources and money. They had money at their disposal, but they had resources. They're a wealthy black person, and so that's when people will coin them as bougie, or these bougie or elite blacks. And so sometimes you can be a dark skinned black person and distance yourself from other black folks because maybe you didn't grow up in that same culture or that same climate of not having certain resources that are really should be afforded to everyone. And that happens. And so sometimes we hurt each other more than other people hurt us on the outside. And so, anyway, I'm gonna end this video because you can't see all the screens. But I just thought it was, since it's just on me, I just thought it was important to mention that because we do have black people. Maybe they were able to go to an expensive college. They're able to buy homes. They maybe had a parent that worked really hard and left them a home. And so they grew up in a culture where they learned to adapt to a certain class of people, maybe middle class, upper middle class, and they distance themselves. And we've seen that where you can have black people based on class who discriminate poor blacks. You have wealthy black people who will discriminate against poor blacks, and it may not necessarily be a skin color thing. It can be more about a money thing or where you grew up, what neighborhoods you come from, and what you've learned in your culture in terms of, did anybody work in the family? Did they leave you any money? Were you left, a large sum of money? Um, did you get left a house? Was your dad a CEO of a company and left you the family business? So sometimes black people will discriminate. Sometimes that happens. And some people are very loving and giving, even though they might have had more resources, and they try to help because they know what it's like for some people to struggle more than others. But that has to do with class, and so there's a lot of issues that are going on here in America that people are sometimes not aware of. And so, not to confuse the two, but then you can have it intertwined. It can be based on how you look, phenotypically, and classism. So, I'm gonna let this video go, but I hope most of the photos showed. But I believe it might be, who knows, it could be being manipulated by some people who have issues with their own background on this social media thing. So because it's really deep, y'all, in America, where people don't feel comfortable in their own skin. And sometimes they feel like their money defines them or their looks define them. It's superficial things that define who they are as an individual in American society. And we tend to put one another down based on how much education you have or not have, where you grew up, what languages you speak, what do you know, um, how you look, even. It may not be just money and what you know, it could be all of it. It could be, how you look, and then you can have people, they may look like, black people stereotypically in America, but they're really wealthy, and they're from a different, they can afford to live in Beverly Hills, or they can afford to live in the Black Beverly Hills, as we call it. They can afford to move out of neighborhoods that are impoverished or have lacks of resources and live a better life because they somehow, you have people who come from poor neighborhoods and didn't have resources. They somehow become famous, like some people we know, and they move out of those situations and they can live in a mansion. They can, buy several cars. They can hobnob with the richest and the famous people because they came from having nothing to having everything, you know. But to keep it in mind that you can have a lot of material items. As fast as you acquire it, you can lose them all as well. And so people have to realize that you got to be careful about the rope that you tread on, because sometimes you can say things to people who kind of catapult your career and bring you to a sort of pinnacle. And we've seen black famous entertainers that have been brought to a certain pinnacle in their life and brought all the way down, and they go down with flames. They wind up getting arrested. They wind up losing all of their money. They wind up in court. You can see them all plastered on social media and on the news, and TMZ does not hold back. They let all the dirty laundry out. We've seen this. And so you can be whatever you want to be. And let me tell you, you mess up, they'll never let you forget it, especially when you're famous. You mess up, you're always going to be on blast. That associated with your famous name is that bad situation you got in, that bar fight you got in, that stripper fight you got into, that pedophilia charge you got, or the rape case that you got. That's going to always be associated with your name because people are always going to go back to that time because that's something that happened. It's all in the newspaper, all on social media, and the more you put yourself out there, because people don't realize there's a price to being famous. And so whatever you do, it comes back on you. And I mean, it can come back on you in a hard way. So I'm still playing with this here. This might be on the video. I was trying to see what was going on with the screen share. Well, anyway, with that being said, let's see what's going on. Looking at this. I'm gonna get off of this video, but I will leave the one article of Zoe Saldana in the bottom of this video so that if you click on it, you will see who she is for those of you that don't know who she is, and for those of you who do know who she is. She basically was reiterating all of the challenges she went through trying to play the famous Nina Simone um, because of how she looked. So Zozo Dania is Afro Latina too as well. So everything is intertwined even here in the States. And like they said, also the UK. What Meghan Merkel, everybody was arguing about that. She's not black enough. She's marrying Prince Harry, and then people found out that they were distant cousins and stuff like that. And so that brought another embarrassing situation out to the forefront, but not so much because of the fact that they're still married. They've been married, and she's about to have a baby. So anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna let this video go, but I will definitely put the article in the bottom of this video. Thanks, like, subscribe, and thanks for listening.